turn to the Radiation Safety Bill. Point of order, Joanna Hayes.
I move that all provisions be taken as one question for the purposes of this debate with a vote on each question.
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There's no objection. The question is that parts 1 and 2, schedules 1 to 5 and clauses 1 and 2 stand part.
Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Anna King.
Mr. Chairman, again I am pleased to rise in support of the second health bill before this House today. Another bill that went to the excellent Health Committee where some very good work was done in trying to understand this bill. And, well, who's on this committee? Of course, there is myself. And some others. Well, there's Scott Simpson and there's Barbara Kruger and there's excellent Putu Williams and Louisa Wall was on it at that time. It's a very, very good committee, Mr. Chairman. But this was quite a difficult bill because we had to understand some issues that were quite foreign to many of us when you got into the detail of it, and I want to commend our officials who serviced this committee because they were excellent. They understood the bill, they could explain to us in layperson's language what it meant, how it would work and what we were changing. So this bill, in fact, replaces the old Radiation Protection Act of 1965. So you can see it was a pretty old act and was in need of some change. And one of the purposes of the bill was to enable New Zealand to meet its international obligations relating to radiation protection, radiation safety and security, nuclear non-proliferation under a range of international treaties. We acknowledge the necessity to do this, to update the legislation and to keep pace with technological changes because an awful lot has changed since 1965. In fact, I can recall seeing my first program on television in about 1962, and you have a look at how things have changed in that time. And so we've changed in terms of microwaves, the cell towers, etc., lots of modern technology. But I have to tell you, this bill is not about that. And which is why I commend my supplementary order paper to the House for consideration. Because this bill is called the Radiation Safety Act, and it is about ionising radiation. So I am suggesting that we have a supplementary order paper and a change to Ionising Radiation Safety Act. Now, I'll tell you why we do that to the Minister in the chair. There is and was some confusion as to what ionising radiation is and where it's regulated and what non-ionising radiation is. So can I just quickly tell the people who are listening what the difference is? Ionising, but before I do that, I just want to say the suggestion for changing the name came from Louisa Wall, and I want to acknowledge it, that she made the suggestion when the SOP is in my name. But ionising radiation is high-energy radiation and includes X-rays, alpha particles, beta particles and gamma rays that have ionising capability and hence cause chemical or molecular changes to interacting bodies. Non-ionising radiation is electromagnetic energy that includes laser lights, electromagnetic fields and radio waves. So non-ionising are cell towers, Wi-Fi, microwave ovens, ultraviolet tanning machines, power lines. They are not addressed in this bill. So when people think that we're passing a bill on radiation safety, the confusion was we were including everything. We are not including everything. This is about ionising radiation. So I say, Minister, that it's not a big loss to the government to actually name it as it is, because the non-ionising radiation is not regulated under this legislation. It is controlled through standards. So that is the difference. Non-ionising is done by standards. Ionising radiation is done by the amendments that are being made in this bill. So I commend that supplementary order paper to the House when we get to debating it. There was some, as I said, some confusion around ionising and non-ionising, and I think it's important to point out to the House that, Mr. Chairman, that the World Health Organisation, the preeminent body in terms of looking at health issues, said that with regard to public health risk posed by electromagnetic fields, the evidence is weakened by the methodological problems such as potential selection bias, and in addition there are no accepted reasons to say that this could cause cancer, that this is a non-ionising radiation. And I say that because there was some confusion. Perhaps if we don't include this, maybe there's evidence saying that it would cause cancer. The World Health Organisation say there is no such evidence. So what the bill does, it introduces a number of things. As I said, it does ensure that we meet our international obligations, but it also brings in a new regime for authorisations for individuals and organisations using radiation material. It puts in place quite a hefty fine regime, Mr. Chairman, for those who contravene their authorisation. In the case of an individual, a fine not exceeding $100,000. And in the case of a person or organisation other than an individual, a fine not exceeding $500,000. There are enforcement officers that have the power to inspect places for reasons that are specified in the bill. The Director General, as the CEO of the Ministry of Health, is responsible for administering this bill, and the Director must maintain a register of controlled radiation sources. The old council that is in place is replaced by a new council, a Safety Advisory Council, Radiation Safety Advisory Council, as opposed to a Radiation Protection Advisory Council. But all the existing members are reinstated, and I think that's probably important because they are people who know what they are doing. So there is quite a lot in this bill, Mr. Speaker. It has a number of parts and schedules. And so we actually support the bill. We think a lot of work's done. I now see we're joined by other members, another member of our officials who supported us at the Select Committee. Can I repeat our thanks for the excellent way our committee was serviced and the very broad knowledge that is held by officials in this quite an area of great expertise. And none of us claimed that we had that expertise, and we have been very well guided by our officials. The bill also covers the use, transportation and the disposal of ionising radiation, both the man-made, which is cobalt-60, and naturally occurring uranium, in quantities above a stated level. And so, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I do think that the changes that have been made, and the Minister's got a number on his supplementary order paper, which we support, this brings our legislation right up to date. It brings us in line with our international conventions and requirements and treaties, but also brings us up to date in terms of New Zealand's domestic approach. And I have to say that it has taken longer than an elephant having a baby to bring this bill to the House. We're talking years to get it to this stage, so I think people will be pleased to see it passed as soon as possible. So the Labour Party supports this bill, but I do say to the Members Officer, in the spirit of cooperation that we have had on this bill, that I would urge the members of the government to vote for my supplementary order paper. Very small change it from the Radiation Safety Act to Ionising Radiation Safety Act. There is no confusion then for the public as to what is covered by legislation and what is covered by standards. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.